Welcome to Deck Analysis and Testing. Today we're looking at Shiranui. Old players probably need no introduction to these fire zombies. You're probably already having PTSD thinking about Sun Saga Set 2 Pass, but times have changed and Shiranui has been power crept into oblivion. Just like Mayakashi, they got new cards including a new Link monster, and a really good skill that turns any level 4 monster into a 1-card combo. The deck is consistent, is resilient in a grind game, and still has tons of space for non-engine. Expect to see Shiranuis as one of the meta contenders in the game. Before I talk about the deck, I want to clear a misconception about the skill because the skill is actually mistranslated in the English version. Because I am using the Japanese version in my phone, I actually see how the text is originally written, and there is a bit of an error in the translation. So the skill says you can special summon monsters. You cannot special summon monsters with a level except zombie monsters or fire monsters. That is incorrect. The skill should say you can only special summon fire zombie monsters. So you can only summon zombie and fire. They have to be together. You can't special summon Mizuki. You can't special summon other zombies like Goblin Zombie, I don't know, but you can only special summon fire zombie monsters. That's the only kind of monster that you are allowed to summon that has a level. So that's why our entire deck consists of only fire zombie monsters and monsters that don't have a level. So you probably have heard people talk about Mizuki 1-card combos. Those are not good because those aren't actually playable with the mistranslated version of the skill. So anyway, let's have a look at the actual deck. We have the Shiranui cards. Shiranui Solitaire can tribute a zombie monster to special summon a zombie tuner with a 0 defense from your deck. And also if it's banished, you can special summon a banished Shiranui. And if it's banished by if you have the field spell on the field, you can also special summon 2 instead of 1, but we're not playing the field spell, so that doesn't matter at all. And we have the 1-card starter, which is Shiranui Squire. This card, when normal summoned, can special summon a Shiranui Spectro card from your hand or deck, which is your tuners. And also it locks you into zombie monsters from for the rest of the turn. And if this card is banished, you can draw a card and discard 1 card. This is your main monster that you're searching with your skill, which is a 1-card combo on its own. Next is 3 copies of Spirit Master. This card, when banished, can pop a card, which is really useful. And also when it's summoned, you can special summon a Shiranui monster from your hand or graveyard, and that includes the Synchro monsters and also the Link monster. So as long as they are properly summoned, which means you actually summoned them the intended way, not using the effect of Spectral Sword, you can revive them with your Spirit Master. And that's actually really good because if you revive something like a Sun Saga, that is like a really big monster that's hard to get rid of and also has a on-summon effect that pops cards that will also trigger when it's summoned by another effect. Next is 3 copies of Samurai. This card is also a free of because we need more level 4 monsters for our 1-card combos. So this card has the quick effect to banish a zombie monster from your graveyard and then gain 600 attack, and also if it battles any monster, after damage calculation, that monster gets banished. Also, if this card is banished, you can get back one of your Shiranui monsters from your graveyard back to your hand. This card is your main recursion. It helps you grab back cards like Squire, and most importantly, it grabs back something like Spectral Sword Shade, which itself gets you back into Samurai. It's kind of a self-consistent loop that basically gives you a lot of card advantage. Speaking of Spectral Sword Shade, let's have a look at this card. This card is a level 3 tuner. It can tribute itself to special summon 2 banished zombie monsters, including 1 Shiranui monster, and the effects are negated. This is our main tuner because the other tuner we get from the skill, so we don't have to play that card. So instead, we are just going to grab this card every single time if we need to summon a tuner from our deck using something like a Squire or something like a Solitaire. And for our last monster, we're playing 1 copy of Smith. Honestly, we just need more level 4 monsters, and this is like the the only one that we have left. So Smith has the effect of grabbing any Shiranui card from your deck to your hand, including the spell traps, when it is used as synchro material, which is actually not that hard to accomplish. If you draw this card in your hand and you pitch it with your skill, your combo actually gives you access to this card on your field, which you can use as synchro material and use its effect. And also it has the effect when it's banished to prevent all of your monsters from being destroyed by battle, which is really annoying. For our spell traps, we honestly can play whatever we want. It's just generic stuff that we can play. I'm playing Silent Graveyard and Horror House because these cards are cheap and free, either cheap or completely free to obtain, like Silent Graveyard. We're also playing 3 copies of Katon. This card is really good, especially in Shiranui's, because this card both counters your opponent's graveyard and also banishes your own Shiranuis. And your Shiranuis have effects when they are banished, so you can use this effect to trigger the effect of something like Spirit Master, which pops a card for free. For the extra deck, we actually don't need to play that many Shiranui Synchros, but honestly, there aren't a lot of stuff that we could play anyway, because we are locked into fire zombies and monsters that don't have a level, so we are still playing the synchro monsters. And also, it's always nice to have more copies of the Shiranui Synchros, because you will go through a lot of them if you go into the grind game. First is, let's start from the level 6 one. Samurai Saga is the level 6 zombie that you will be synchro summoning. It is most often summoned using the effect of Spectral Sword in your graveyard, plus a level 4 monster in your graveyard, and 4+2 makes this card. And honestly, the effect doesn't really matter, it's just a 2500 attack guy. And for our level 8, it is Shogun Saga. This card actually has an effect that matters, because it can boost its own attack to a huge amount. So what it does is, when it is a special summon, you can banish one zombie monster from the graveyard, and this card gains that monster's attack. And also, if it's destroyed and sent to the graveyard, you can target one of your banished zombie monsters with 0 defense and return that to the graveyard. This is most often used alongside Spectral Sword, returning that card to the graveyard, allowing you to summon Sun Saga in your next turn. And Sun Saga is a really good boss monster. This card has a ton of attack, and also when it's special summoned, not just synchro summon, just any special summon. So this card allows you to return any number of banished or in your graveyard synchro monsters back to your extra deck, and destroy the same amount of cards your opponent controls. You must destroy the same amount of cards. So if your opponent only has 1 card and you return 2 cards, you cannot destroy any cards, because you must destroy the exact same amount. Anyway, it also has a second effect to protect your monsters from being destroyed by battle or card effect by banishing a Shiranui monster from your graveyard. That is really strong, and since this is a zombie deck, it's really easy to load up your graveyard with a bunch of zombies, which you can use for the protection of Sun Saga. Finally, we have the new boss monster, which is a Skill Saga. This card is actually not very good on its own, but the skill makes it actually playable. So this is a link 3 that requires 2 or more zombie monsters. It has the effect of synchro monsters you control cannot be destroyed by card effects, and fire monsters you control cannot be destroyed by battle, which includes itself. During your opponent's turn, as a quick effect, you can target one of your banished zombie synchro monsters and special summon it to your zone that this card points to. And you can only use this effect once per turn. This card usually is used to summon Sun Saga, because your skill actually lets you banish this card directly from your extra deck, which you can use Skill Saga during your opponent's turn to summon back the Sun Saga and trigger its on-summon effect to pop a card your opponent controls without targeting. This card actually does not target when it destroys a card. And for the remaining of the deck, we are playing just links. The best one is probably Draco Masters and Lanthorincus. This is probably the best generic and free to obtain, not really free to obtain, but like cheap links that you could play in to replace the nightmare stuff that that everyone might have. These cards are just like good overall, so yeah. Let's also have a quick go through about the skill. The skill is really heavily mistranslated, but I'll try my best to explain what it actually does. It can only be activated if your deck contains 10 or more zombie monsters. and it adds 4 Shiranui Synchro Monsters. It adds the level 10, the level 8, the level 6, and the level 5 one. And also, if you use the skill, you cannot special summon any monsters other than zombie fire monsters or monsters that don't have a level. And this skill has 2 effects. One of them allows you to send one level 4 monsters, level 4 monster from your hand to your graveyard to add a Shiranui card from your deck to your hand. And also, it can allow you to return all Synchro and Link monsters from your graveyard or banished back to your deck, and then banish 2 zombie Synchro monsters with different names. This usually banishes a copy of Sun Saga plus a Samurai Saga, and when you summon Sun Saga with your Link monster, you can shuffle back the Shogun Saga and pop a card for free. Okay, let's have a look at the expensive version. There are 2 ways to actually go and approach Shiranui as a whole. Some people like to play more back row, some people like to play more monsters. I kinda went for the middle ground. We are having a pretty balanced monsters and spell trap lineup. We're still playing the minimal amount of monsters that we need to play in order to use the skill. And then the rest of them are generic staples, including 3 copies of Forbidden Droplet. That's right, I actually have 3 copies of Forbidden Droplet, and one of them is even prismatic, but that doesn't really matter anyway. We also have Crackdown and Warning Point. And for our final back row, we have 1 copy of a Shiranui Story, because this card is actually searchable from a Shiranui Smith. So this is basically a reborn or a search from your deck, depending on the situation. For the extra deck, it's basically the same, but instead of the bad links, the Draco Masters, the Lampharinkus, we're just playing good links, including Rastaliger and his pals, Nightmare Unicorn and Phoenix, and a second copy of Skill Saga Supremacy. Okay, let's have a look at the replays. This time we're going first. This deck does prefer going first. This deck is actually very defensive if you actually looked at the graph, because of Sun Saga's protection, and the Link monster also protects your monsters as well. Anyway, we opened with 1 monster, which is enough. That is all you need to combo. We will be using the effect of Spectral Sword to banish the monster that we sent to make Samurai Saga, and then we will make Squire, which brings out the Shade, and then bring back 2 monsters. And now we will we'll Synchro Summon Shogun Saga before we Link Summon Skill Saga Supremacy. Anyway, before I continue, I have to remind you guys that all of the Synchro monsters can only be special summoned once per turn. So if you Synchro Summoned or Special Summoned the Samurai Saga once during this turn, you cannot summon it a second time. So that's why we have to, every time when we Synchro Summon a monster, we have to Synchro Summon a monster with a different name. So, for example, we can't use the Squire and Spectral Sword on field to make a second copy of Samurai Saga because of that restriction. So we will be making Shogun Saga instead, which basically accomplishes the same thing of having 2 Synchro monsters in the graveyard, which we can use our skill to shuffle back and banish the Sun Saga for us to summon back later on in our opponent's turn. Our opponent will be playing Dark Magician, which is interesting. Eternal Soul is a pretty frightening card if we don't have an out, but we do. We can just pop it with Skill Saga summoning back the Sun Saga, which we will do. We will summon back it, return back a monster, pop that back row. Our opponent will activate 3 copies of Illusion Magician, and that gives him 7600 attack and goes for lethal. Yeah, I actually, that's impressive. I have no words for this. Well, that was a not so epic loss from us, but let's see if we can do better this time. We are going second, and we open with Spirit Master, which is a really good card going second, because we actually don't need to commit to our normal summon before we pop a card with Spirit Master by just having it in the graveyard and banishing it with the Spectral Sword that is already in our graveyard. Our opponent is playing Suships. They're going to make a whole bunch of Sushis and overlay to make their Xyz. They're also going to summon V Salamander, which means they will be accessing Utopia Ray, which gets them equipped cards and negates my monster effects, which would be annoying. but we do have an out in the form of Spirit Master. This card, even though it cannot pop the Xyz if it's equipped with the thing that prevents it from being targeted, which is like this one, we can still at least pop the equip spell, which also prevents him from using the effect anyway. So we will be using the Spectral Sword's effect, banishing itself and the Spirit Master, and using the Spirit Master to pop his equip spell. He will chain the effect of the negate, and negate a monster that doesn't really matter. We're going to normal summon a Spirit Master, special summon Solitaire from our hand, tribute itself, summon a Shade, and it gets banished when it's sent to the graveyard because of Spirit Master's effect, and then it summons back one of our monsters to make Shogun Saga. We're going to give it a whole bunch of attack, summon back some guys. Our opponent realizes that that's lethal on board, and he is going to scoop. In our third game, we are once again going first, and let's see how much we can do. Our opponent is also playing Shiranui's, and this actually shows that this deck does require some thinking to actually play. It's not as brain dead as you might think. And especially with the skill mistranslation, a lot of people actually don't know how this skill actually works, and also the restrictions on your synchros is actually really prevalent. The restriction that you can only special summon them once per turn, you have to always keep that in mind if you play this deck, as you will be able to see in our opponent's side of the field. They will forget to actually pay attention to this effect. Anyway, we did a bit of misplay. We should have used the skill before we made the link. So because the skill shuffle backs every single zombie synchro, not just 2. So we could have left one more Sun Saga in our graveyard so we can pop 2 cards instead of 1 when we summon back the Sun Saga that is banished. But anyway, we still can at least flip that monster face down with Horror House. Our opponent will use the spell and then summon Tuner and make Samurai Saga, and that is why you should read cards, because that is actually not a very ideal thing to do, because now he can't use the effect of the Spectral Sword in the graveyard to summon the level 6, because he already summoned the level 6 once already during this turn, so he can't summon it twice. He realizes that, and he will be scooping.